Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. And we're reading Smart Money Woman by our favorite girl Arese. I'm trying to sound hyped, but I am a little down today, so it happens. So we're currently in chapter 11 and I'll start reading now. Please don't forget to subscribe to support our channel and like this video. Thank you. Chapter 11. Earning more. As Zuri waited patiently for a waiter to bring a menu to the table, she gazed out the window to admire the people eating by the poolside at the George Hotel. It had gorgeous grounds, and it was a nice day. The idea of sitting outside was tempting, but she knew that, despite the canopies that covered the tables, in a matter of hours, the heat would become unbearable, and the flies that were sure to follow the food would make matters worse. She decided it was best to stay indoors, under the protection of the air conditioning. Sumi. As she perused the menu, trying to decide what drink to order before the rest of the girls joined her for brunch, her mind drifted to the dramatic events over the last couple of months. 6 months ago, Mr. Okeke causing a scene in her building over the debt she owed was the most embarrassing thing she thought could happen to anyone she knew. She now realized how naive she had been. Still, the last few months had shown her that the resilience of herself and her friends, Adeswa and Ladum, especially, both were going through things that would break most people. But she had watched both women handle their issue with true grit and an unimaginable amount of grace. Adeswa was a trooper. Not many women would be able to handle the fact that their husbands had ended their marriage via text message. After weeks of being missing in action and cleaning out their joint account, the coward had sent a rubbish text message to explain. He told her he was tired of being married and needed a fresh start. Oh, such an idiot. He had found the love of his life and was moving to London to pursue a business opportunity, a club. Adeswa had been so inconsolable for weeks. After the shock had worn off and the reality of her financial situation had set in, she began to pick up the pieces. She started by liquidating what was left of Soji's failing ventures, restructured the loan with the banks, set up meetings to agree to a repayment plan that was achievable, and sold some of the assets she owned to pay down some of the debt, so she could buy some goodwill. Still, she was facing a long journey to escape the financial mess. Zuri was in awe of how Adeswa had transformed herself into a Wonder Woman in a matter of months, taking charge of her own destiny. Ladun, on the other hand, although removed from the day-to-day dealings of tackling the Ashonis family financial woes, had surprised everyone with the grace with which she had handled the drastic adjustment. They had moved to a much smaller flat in Lekki that was closer to Aja than to Phase 1. Her kids had moved to a new school at the end of the previous term, and she was currently looking for work and exploring business ideas that would help her earn extra income while Bode and his brothers soldiered on the fight with the banks. Zuri was forced back to reality by the sound of Tammy's excited voice. Where you dey go? Face beat and everything. I thought it was just brunch with the girls. Tammy looked very pleased with herself. My highlight is popping, Abi. I got my makeup done by Anita Browns. I'm going to Lebu's dad's 60th birthday, and you know we have to slay. Anyway, you are not going to believe what I'm about to tell you, Tammy said as she plunked her Chanel bag on the table carelessly and settled in the seat closest to the window. What? Although, to be honest, I'm not really interested. Please pass the juice. You are so annoying, but I'm going to tell you anyway, Tammy said. I know who Soji's side piece is. Really? Who? How do you know? Do we know her? Zuri knew she wasn't making any sense, but Tammy had the answers to questions that had been plaguing them for months. Chinasa. That's right. Chinasa, Tammy exclaimed. You know how she's always forming big brother, little sister with Soji and his friends. It turns out she's been sleeping with Soji this entire time. Chinasa care. How? But she's so young. Are you sure? Where did you hear that? A client that just left my studio spilled the beans. One Tosin apparently, who is to be BFFs with her, Tammy said under air quotes for emphasis. I think they fought. So now she's telling everybody that cares to listen Chinasa's business. Tosi even showed me pictures on WhatsApp to prove it. Zuri's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. Oh, it gets worse. Remember how I told you that Senny Foster was dating Amanda from high school and that they had bought her a flat in London and all that? Zuri nodded. Chinasa is all up in that mix. She showed me pictures on WhatsApp of Chinasa in Paris, getting off Senny's private plane, eating at restaurants, and coming out of hotels. So while the Momo Soji thinks he has found the love of his life and is spending Adeswa's hard-earned money to impress her, Chinasa has a sugar daddy that is keeping her in Gucci and gold. Ha 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 ha. Because Adeswa knew if she doesn't, she will soon hear. That Ose girl is telling everyone. Zuri stared at Tammy in bewilderment, still trying to process the information. What I don't understand is she's young and educated. Why can't she find someone her own age and unmarried? Chinasa is what? 23, 24? She's from a wealthy family, so she can't even use hunger as an excuse for her behavior. But I don't blame her alone. And why a loser like Soji? He has no money of his own. I mean, with Senny Foster, the motives are clear. He may be a zero in the looks department, but I would imagine that dating him came with perks, plane tickets, fancy hotels, designer bags, and an allowance. Tammy laughed. Yep, I've heard he's quite generous, Soji thought. I've heard he's quite generous. Soji though? She shook her head. That remains a mystery. They both looked up to see Lara walk across to their table in an immaculate all-white ensemble. Hello, darlings, she said as she hugged and gave each of them a kiss before taking her seat. What were you guys talking about? Lara asked, looking at both girls suspiciously. She shook her head in disbelief as Tammy filled her in. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. I've been saying this thing about Chinasa for some time now. I never bought into her whole an innocent girl routine. It was too convenient how she seemed to be every popular guy's little sister and such good friends with their wives. It was only a matter of time before she slept with one of them. Let's change the subject, Joe. I don't even want to be caught having a conversation about Adeswa's marriage, Zuri said. My hands no day. Tammy laughed. Moving on, you know what I've been thinking? Between listening to Almost a Day at Wimby's and watching Adeswa and Ladum walk through fire, I woke up. When it's close to home like this, it makes you realize if you are not on top of your money, you can be blindsided at any time. Tell me about it, Lara said. Ladum's situation made me start checking myself. She went from calling me about getting the numbers of personal shoppers on Instagram so she could get a new Hermes bag to calling me to ask about advice on whether she should focus on her business ideas or job interviews. Anyway, I sent her to look at resources at She Leads Africa. Man, she asked me to and I couldn't answer. A few months ago, I would have told her to become an entrepreneur. Easy peasy. But I'm starting to learn that this entrepreneurship life is not for everyone, said Tammy. Now. What do you mean by that? Ladum has skills. She just needs time to figure things out, Zuri said. No, I know she has skills. I wasn't even trying to throw shade. Tammy replied seriously. I'm just speaking from my recent experiences. All these years, I have been deceiving myself that I am an entrepreneur, but I have just been playing at a hobby. It wasn't until I set up a meeting with that bimbo babe that I met at Wimby from the accounting firm that I realized my business had actually been running at a loss. Really? Zuri looked shocked. I could see this happening actually, Lara said, knowingly as she sipped her tea. What? It's true now. To the trained eyes, it is obvious to see that you didn't have a proper business model. You were probably just spending your cash flow as if it was your profit. As in, Lara, I really want to abuse you right now, but that's exactly what Bimbo said when she helped me clean up my books, Tammy said sheepishly. I'm ashamed to say I've never kept any proper financial record. No balance sheet, no cash flow, no profit and loss statement. And I've been shining teeth for 5 years saying, hello, I'm an entrepreneur. Zuri and Lara cracked up. The funny thing is, it's actually not that hard, Tammy continued. I don't need to become an accountant. I have just learned to interpret the numbers and what they mean for my business. Now, I'm clear on how the business is really doing and how exactly it works. I've put myself on a salary to stop mixing my business and personal finances. You guys, I don't know how I've stayed afloat this long. Your rich daddy, Lara coughed. Zuri started laughing so hard she wanted to cry. But it's true, Lara is right. You have always had several cushions. Your daddy or whatever boy is toasting you at that moment. I'm not even going to lie. Until recently, I just thought I never had to worry about money. I would just go from my daddy's house to my rich husband's house. Tammy laughed. Who didn't know? Lara said cheekily. Don't get it twisted. I still want to marry a rich husband, but now I'm clear about who I want to marry, Tammy said. Lara and Zuri exchanged knowing glances and collapsed into another round of laughter. Who I beg? Zuri asked. The new trophy wife, Tammy responded. A what? There are different types of trophy wives. Now, Tammy rolled her eyes. I'm reading a Huffington Post article. I was reading a Huffington Post article that said the term trophy wife has been upgraded to version 2.0. She's now a woman who is making good money and is in a position of power. A La Amel Clooney. I don't know what that word is, but it's spelled ALEAMAL, then Clooney, CLOONEY. I love it, Zuri said. We need to go hard and figure out to make this money. Ladies, after my meeting with Omosede a few weeks ago, I realized I wasn't making enough money and I need to find more ways to earn. Multiple streams of income, guys. Multiple streams of income. So true, Lara said. My passive income game is up these days. I feel like my stockbroker and real estate agents are my best tools these days because I talk to them every other week. Uh-uh, check you out, Tammy laughed. I'm serious. Now that the economy is slow, assets are relatively cheap, so I set aside at least 20% of my income every month towards any real estate or stock market opportunities that come my way from those two because they are the best. They get it. I can hook you up if you want. I'm a little obsessed with almost a day at the moment because we're on track to reaching my investment goal. But I'm open to listening to what other opportunities your guys have. Zuri replied. Aw, yay for us. We need to keep ourselves accountable, Tammy said earnestly. We would never let each other get fat. So let's never let each other get broke. Aww. Zuri was glad her conversations with the girls had evolved from gossiping and talking about clothes to discussing businesses and opportunities to earn. There was now a balance. Her mentor, Mrs. Abafo Williams, had shared something profound with her the other day that had stuck. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you hang out with 4 broke people, you'll be the 5th. If you hang out with 4 business-minded people, you'll be the 5th. Zuri had been amused, but the statement had made more than a ring of truth to it. She was fast realizing that terrible money habits could be formed by just the people you choose to hang out with, even if they were great. If one friend talked about her business and investment, others in the group would likely start speaking about theirs too. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing. It was Tishola again, and she wasn't in the mood to speak to him. She was still upset about how harsh he had been to her, and she wasn't sure she could be with someone so judgmental. Who is that? Lara asked. Tishola, she replied flatly. You are still not talking to him. My friend, get real. You know that you cannot afford that car and he was only telling you the truth. I beg, stay out of it. Back in her apartment, Zuri stared at her computer as she went over the notes from her pitch to Mr. Tunde in the morning. Even though she had barely been able to practice her pitch with the girls over brunch because of all the gossip, she was pretty confident he would be impressed. Her mind wandered back to their conversation at brunch. She wasn't a hypocrite, so she recognized that she certainly wanted all the things Chinasa and her friends lusted after too. But the question was, at what cost? Mama. It wasn't news to Zuri that if she wanted to reach her goals and eventually live the life she wanted, she had to earn more money. She couldn't even front. She wanted the PJ lifestyle as much as the next girl. In this generation, where almost everyone was a hustler in one capacity or the other, she didn't know how many people who went aspiring to that lifestyle. From the corporate exes to the entrepreneurs, as a matter of fact, according to Instagram these days, everyone was a CEO raking in millions of naira from their business. She remembered a time she had hankered for that life so much that she even entertained the idea of a sugar daddy because the pressure to keep up in Lagos was intense. But thankfully, her better self had prevailed. She liked designers too, as much as the next girl. But at what cost? Some prices are just too high. She knew she wanted to make more money, but meeting some of the women at Wimby's had given her the wake-up call she needed. She was now more aware of the kind of woman she wanted. Mama, why are you making raspberries with your mouth? Sorry. Come on. Yes, she wanted more money, but she also wanted to drive impact. The experience had her the experience made her realize that she wasn't doing enough with her life or maximizing her potentials. Some of those women had started out small, but each of them was making a positive impact in their industries. And for Zuri, the connection thread had been purpose and passion. There was a woman who felt connected to their purpose in life. These are women who felt connected to their purpose in life and were fully engaged in the work that they did every day. She wanted to feel that. She wanted to put herself in a position to earn more, but to also create value that will make a positive impact. Weeks after the Wimby's conference, she had toyed with the idea of becoming an entrepreneur and starting her own business. So this my baby right here is currently teething. So she sucked on everything. She's sucking on her hands, she's sucking on her gum, she's sucking on everything. So forgive the background sound. She toyed with the idea of becoming an entrepreneur and starting her own business. But after an eventful brunch meeting with Mrs. Abafor Williams, Miss A to her mentees, who had been assigned to her as a mentor, her thoughts on this had changed. They had met up for coffee a few weeks ago, and she had told Zuri to come ready to talk about her goals. They had met at Cactus mid-morning on a very wet Thursday. Zuri had arrived 20 minutes early. She understood the value of Mrs. A's time and hadn't wanted to risk being late. She understood the value of Mrs. A's time and hadn't wanted to risk being late. After she had pitched her summaries of the business idea she had been working on, Mrs. A poked holes in each one, asking questions about proof of concept, customer acquisition, strategies, and scalability, none of which Zuri could answer. She was about to give up when Mrs. A explained something profound to her. You know, leveraging on your skill set to maximize your earning potential doesn't have to mean starting your own business, right? Mrs. A said with concern, the fact is not everyone is an entrepreneur. It's more important to be entrepreneurial in your thinking and to find ways to add value wherever you are. At the time, Zuri had wanted to object because she felt like she would be excluded from the new elite young entrepreneurs who were developing new ideas and creating a new world. Did Mrs. A think she wasn't cut out for business? As though sensing her concern, Mrs. A said, "Don't worry, it's not that I'm saying you won't be good at business. I'm just pointing out the fact that there are other options. You sound so passionate about what you're describing when you're describing the work you do at Richmond and all the changes you would make if you were in charge. I think there's still room for growth there. Trust me when I say you can start a business in your place of work, start a business in any phase of your life, not start a business in your place of work." Please, I've corrected myself. So, there's no rush. The key is to only pursue the ideas that keep you up at night. You do not seem overly excited about any of the ideas you've pitched to me today. So my suggestion is focus on expanding your role in Richmond because you're passionate about the work you do there. You have just gotten bored with the role you have been saddled with. Am I right? Zuri nodded. So have you spoken to your boss about expanding your role? Mrs. A said. No, because they'll never go for it. They're sacking people right now, and I'm barely out of probation. No one will listen to me, Zuri said. You think no one will listen to you, but you would be surprised. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. But first, you need to figure out what you're asking for in details. I told you before that in every crisis, there's opportunity. So how are you best placed to serve the company in its present circumstances? I'm not sure, Zuri confessed. I pitched an idea about creating a brand new division to my immediate supervisor, Mr. Obi, about a year ago, but he basically laughed in my face and told me to get serious. To be honest, he was probably right. I don't have enough experience to start a new division. I still think it's a great idea, but I'm not sure I have what it takes to execute. Mrs. A then told her frankly, women have what it takes. Okay, women have what is called imposter syndrome. I have one of that. We tend to rate ourselves lower than the rest of the world rates us. If I ask you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, when it comes to how capable you are to create and run a division, you are proposing, what would you say? A 4 or 5 maybe. If I gave your male counterpart with exactly the same skill set and experience than you, he'll probably give himself an 8 because he's more confident, and men tend to overestimate their expertise and then figure it out later. Zuri had known this was true. Her colleague, Tobe, would volunteer for a task immediately it was suggested, while she sat down second-guessing herself, but then always ask for her help later when it comes to execution. Mrs. A looked at her pointedly, then said, "This is my advice. Don't give up. Go back and nurture your idea. Put it back together again and represent it. But this time to Mr. Tunde. He sounds like he's tough, but an ally, so he might be of help. The point of every business is to make profits. That's the bottom line. To make profit, your idea must either be generating more revenue for the company or reducing costs. However, if I'm honest, it will be much easier to sell if it's generating more revenue for the firm, because that's what managers want to hear. How to make more money. They see cost-cutting ideas as part of your job anyway, so it won't sound revolutionary to them, even if it is. The thing is, when you have to prove the value of your ideas by persuading other people to buy into it, it clears up your thinking. So I want you to go back and think about that idea. How can it create the most value for your company in a cost-effective way, given the state of the economy? Then poke holes in your argument. What are the reasons Mr. Tunde might come up with to suggest it won't work? Find ways to counter the other side of the argument, and I implore you, use numbers to illustrate your point. The numbers never lie, and once a reasonable person sees in black and white that an idea is financially feasible, that you have taken the time to do your research and have the passion and confidence to execute, there's no way that they should say no. Even if they do, don't give up. Just find a way to reframe the problem. Make your argument stronger and represent it. Once Mr. Tunde says yes, you can find a reasonable way to tie in your own compensation. If it's tied to performance, it will relatively sell easy. That was 3 weeks ago. Zuri had left the meeting excited. She felt like it was the ginger she needed to get herself in gear. As Zuri knocked on Mr. Tunde's door and waited, she took a shaky breath. She believed in her ideas. She knew it would work, but she wasn't sure if the board members at Richmond would give it a chance. Mr. Tunde was more open-minded than most of the management team, but he was very old-fashioned, old school, and very steadfast on his beliefs about how things should be done. I'm not going to allow fear of negative thoughts to overwhelm me, Zuri thought. She walked in confidently as she mentally went over her notes and the order she was going to present it. Morning, Zuri. Take a seat, Mr. Tunde said as he observed her skeptically and gestured to the chair in front of his table. Morning, Mr. Tunde. Zuri smiled as she sat down. Thank you again for agreeing to block out this time in your schedule to have this meeting with me. I truly appreciate it. That's all right. So what's the fantastic idea you have come up with? Zuri spent almost an hour with him, first going over the idea of a value add online marketplace for their clients to meet curated, well-vetted interior designers with a furniture component. Then he probed some of the pros and cons of the ideas, looking for weak spots and questioning the number she presented. Zuri knew her stuff. She gave all the right answers, and he was impressed about how thorough her research was. I'm very glad you like the idea, sir. I know with your backing, we will succeed. That's why I would like to discuss a different compensation structure, Zuri said. The current structure at Richmond is to pay monthly salaries and then give a 13th month salary bonus. But I would like to suggest an extra commission based on compensation for this division, she continued. I knew there had to be a catch, Mr. Tunde replied. We have had to let go of staff recently, so clearly we don't have money to pay commission. I understand, Mr. Tunde. What I'm asking is performance-based, and it would only start after the 3rd month of operation when we started seeing the profit, Zuri said. Every month we exceed a 36% profit margin. I would like if 5% of the profit raked in by my division to be paid to us. 5.25% should be reinvested in the division to fund new experimental ideas, and another 2 points towards compensating the team for their hard work. I would also like a 20% increase in my own salary. Ooh, go sorry! If this idea works and if it's profitable by the 3rd month, Mr. Tunde looked at her. Why 30%? Why 36? He asked. Because I know that when business is good, we typically make that amount from our other income streams. So if I manage to exceed that percentage, I think it's fair to get compensated for it. Mr. Tunde stared at her for a few seconds and said, I have to give it to you. We thought this one through, and it sounds like you've set very high performance goals for yourself. So I'll tell you now that I like the idea, but I have to run it through the rest of the partners and get back to you. It shouldn't be a problem because it's all contingent on you making us more money. If you can't deliver, then we don't have to pay you, and if you deliver, it's a win-win. This is a great initiative, Zuri. I'm honestly proud of you. It had been a triumphant day, She thought about all the anxiety on the lead up to the meeting with Mr. Tunde, but in the end, it was all worth it. She felt she was ready to crush this new challenge. As she stared at the screen of her phone, she realized that the first person she wanted to share this accomplishment with was Tishola. She had practiced her pitch on him so many times for the last few weeks before their big fight, and he had been absolutely supportive, giving her pointers. It took everything in her not to pick up her phone and call him to give him a blow-by-blow account of what had happened in the meeting with Mr. Tunde. Her doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole to see Tishola standing there, and for some reason, she couldn't stop smiling. I will smile too. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself before she opened the door. I'm sorry, he said as the door swung open. I hope this makes up for it. I didn't know what kind of flowers you liked, so I just told them to make me something beautiful. He stepped aside to review a flower arrangement. Zuri smiled. They are beautiful. They are gorgeous. I love them. Thank you. She hesitated. Would you like to come in? She invited. No, I just came to drop the flowers. Of course I would like to come in, he joked, breaking the tension. But you're a stubborn girl, Sha. I know I was a bit harsh, but not picking up my calls for a week, a bit. You were way judgmental. Judgmental? I still stand by my point, but the way I communicated it was not great. Whatever. You know I'm right. As she looked around for a vase, she noticed an envelope tucked in a flower. Did you write me a love letter? Tishola smiled. She opened the envelope. It was 2 tickets to Cape Town, South Africa. So, small money lessons. Maximize your earnings potential by focusing on finding your purpose. 9 out of 10 times when people ask how they can make more money, my answer is find your purpose. Yes, it sounds trite. 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 But this is a basic truth. Your purpose is your calling, the thing that drives you to be successful, because it is what you were created to do. It sits at the center of 3 aspects of your life. Skill set, the things that you are good at, either because it's what you have studied or because you spent hours honing. Passion, people often confuse this with the things they like doing. It is that idea that burns deep inside you, so much so that you can't stop thinking about it until you execute. I like to say it makes you feel like you are pregnant with ideas, earning potentials. Your idea has to solve a problem that people will be willing to pay for. People are complex, so it's possible to be called to several things or for your purpose to evolve. An article written by Fred Swanika of the African Leadership Group explains purpose best. To determine if something is your purpose, it must answer 3 questions. 1. Is it big enough? Which speaks to impact. 2. Are you in a unique position to make it happen? What skill or resource do you have to have access to execute the idea? 3. Are you passionate enough about it? Does it pass the sleepless night test? He explains that if the answer is yes to all 3 questions, then it is probably your calling. When it comes to earning money, it's important for people to understand purpose because they often pursue an idea and then can't follow through on because they haven't thought through those 3 questions. You can't earn money from a side business, side deals, investing, or passive income, but ultimately, the mechanism with which you primarily and actively earn an income plays a huge role in determining how wealthy you become. The more money you can generate from the mechanism you choose will determine how much you have to invest in a side business, stock, etc. So, how do you earn more? The most popular answer these days is become an entrepreneur, start your own business. I've seen lots of articles and memes on Instagram and Twitter that say, if you don't follow your dreams, you end up working for someone who did, which is fair enough. If a bit of an overgeneralization. In order to maximize your earning power and have the ability to invest, you need to pursue a career you are passionate about and create multiple streams of income. This does not necessarily mean you have to become an entrepreneur. The reality is, not everyone is cut out to be their own boss. You need to learn this right early on. Being a boss is not about working for yourself and avoiding the discipline of 9 to 5. There are two ways to be stuck, and you don't want to be stuck in your 30s or 40s. 1. Stuck in a 9 to 5 you hate, and 2. Stuck in an entrepreneurial role you cannot handle. Heading: Are you glamorizing entrepreneurship? Just 10 to 15 years ago in Africa, becoming financially successful and making your parents proud generally meant that you had to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an accountant, and maybe even an investment banker. Pursuing a university degree then, deciding to become an entrepreneur, would have caused mayhem in most Nigerian homes. You were expected to choose a profession, work hard at it, then scale the career ladder to success. However, with the scarcity of good jobs and unemployment on the rise, starting a business has been the new normal for many graduates. In fact, entrepreneurship has become one of the most sustainable ways to solve Africans' unemployment problems. However, are we glamorizing it in the detriment of our long-term success? 3 things we should probably consider. 1. Selling the idea that entrepreneurship is the only guaranteed way to success. I can't count the number of times I've heard, if you don't follow your dreams, you end up working for someone who did, and no one ever gets rich from working a 9 to 5. These are overgeneralization that had consequences, because the fact is, not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Plus, if we all become our own bosses, who is going to work for whom? Who will be the employees? It is wonderful that non-traditional avenues to earn money have opened up in the form of entrepreneurship. But why do we always have to have two extremes? Mark Zuckerberg was the founder of Facebook, but Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook COO and author of Lean In, which had helped millions of women around the world in their workplace, is not just an employee. Just because she isn't the founder of Facebook, it doesn't make her less important, because she focuses on being a value-driven individual. To paraphrase Dusty Moskovitz, if you joined Facebook as employee number 1,000, you would still have made roughly $20 million. Shouldn't the focus be on encouraging people to be entrepreneurial in their thinking, whether they work in a corporation or run their own business? People who are entrepreneurial in their thinking are value-driven. They adopt critical thinking and embrace innovation and continuous improvement. They are the ones you see solving problems every day and are getting paid to do so, regardless of whatever they are. They are the founders of the company or not. 2. Are we choosing entrepreneurship for the right reasons? With entrepreneurship growing in global popularity, everyone wants to be a boss. Many graduates don't even bother joining the rat race anymore. They come out of university saying, I don't want to work for anyone. I want to be my own boss. A good proportion of them already on the corporate ladder can't wait to jump off and start a business so that they too can escape. The thing is, becoming an entrepreneur is about avoiding the discipline of a 9-to-5 job or jumping into the next IT industry because other people seem to be making money. Becoming an entrepreneur is about finding a problem that you are uniquely placed to solve and that people will pay you for. You shouldn't be thinking about a me too copy and paste approach because the idea of working for yourself sounds appealing. The thought process should be, what skill or resource do I have to execute these ideas? Am I passionate enough about it to pursue it and follow through? The myth that good ideas are the key to business success. We live in a world where the future of success is touted as becoming an entrepreneur. So the focus of most graduates is to be the next Elon Musk or Sarah Blakely and create the next Tesla or Spanx. The thought around this is powerful, but it is not the full story. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution and the ability to solve a series of problems is the actual key to success. Becoming an entrepreneur means you are responsible for an enterprise, and beyond the idea, a successful enterprise has to have a structure, a business model, and a value proposition. Instead of over-glamorizing either end of the spectrum, let's focus on encouraging people to be value-driven, solve problems where they are, and focus on finding career paths that suit their skill sets and temperament so they can thrive. Let me read that last line again. I didn't find this full stop. Solve problems where they are and focus on finding career paths that suit their skill sets and temperament so they can thrive. That is the end of the lesson. Okay, we're moving on to exercise. So before we move on to exercise, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel because this is the last chapter in the Smart Money Woman book. Please don't forget to subscribe and like while we move on to book 2 and then a new book. Exercise. Discover your purpose. 1. Write down at least 3 skills that you can improve your earning potential. 2. In your everyday job, even if you hate your job, what particular skill do you do well? For example, you're an analyst. Do you hate research, but you like building business models? 3. What problems do your friends call you to solve? 4. What are 10 things you can do every day to improve your mastery in these skills? For example, research courses, find a mentor, understudy someone who does what you want to do, taking out 2 hours a day to perfect the practice. 5. Write down 10 things you complain about every day. 6. Break the problem down into smaller tasks. 7. What skills do you have that can solve a specific aspect of the problem? 8. How can you package your skill set to create value that people will pay for? 9. What 5 things are you uniquely pleased to do? Oh, that's not the last chapter. It's a chapter 12. So I am going to stop here because this is the end of chapter 11. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you, guys. Chapter 12 is the last chapter, so stay tuned.